Mary Bonk, and I lived here from 1977 to 1984. And I moved in here with my son, who was 4 months old at the time, single mom. I was the first person with a child here. They had just recently renamed it from Stone Manor to Martha's Co-op. And a lot of the people here were these incredible feminist women, and I was pretty much a self-taught, vagabond person, and I wanted to get an education because I didn't have one, and I couldn't figure out how I was going to get one, and I thought the best way for me to get one would be to live with people that were in college, because then I could, raise my kid. My dad told me, well, you don't have to even pay for the classes, you can just go, which is what I did. I brought Ryan with me, and I would nurse him, and I'd take notes, and I'd have people give me the test questions to make sure that I was doing okay, and then as in my 5 years at the co-op, there was a lot of graduate students. I met some really, really incredible people, and I learned a lot. And I guess I kind of always started out in high school thinking that I wanted to be self-taught, and Martha seemed like a good fit.
Yeah, you were telling me, Mary, how it got the name Martha's?
Yeah, they originally, when they first became a co-op in the 60s, it was because during the Vietnam War, the Greek, the sororities and fraternities, a lot of them went out of business, so the houses were up for sale for relatively cheap. And so there was a couple of kind of wealthier people from New York that had money, and they started buying the houses, and they originally bought Martha's, Lothlorien, and Nottingham were the first, I think, the original houses. And they named it Martha's because there's a Doris Lessing book called Martha Quest, and this character is one of Doris Lessing's earlier novels, and it takes place in South Africa. And Martha Quest is really opposed to apartheid and really more of a socialist, and I can't remember what her original name was, but she decides to change her name to Martha Quest because she wants to change herself. And so here I was, trying to be self-taught and get an education with a little baby, and just surrounded by these really fascinating people. And
Cool.
but I was pretty, I have a pretty working class background. I went to high school in Racine, Wisconsin, and so it was kind of heady in some ways, and I think I provided a pretty good balance in a lot of ways. There was a lot of problems with discipline with the kids. I was telling the people down in the kitchen that when we would have dinner, the kids would run around the tables in the dining room and like grab food off of like their parents' plates and stuff. And it was like chaos. You couldn't have a conversation in the dining room because the kids were like running around grabbing food.
Wow, really?
And so I remember that was one of my first things at the house meeting, saying we can't, they're not wild animals, they're human children, and we need to make sure they get enough to eat. And if they're not sitting down and focusing on the task at hand, they're not going to get enough food. And so that actually took a few meetings before, this is making me think about your Martha's rules for harmonious meetings. Do you still use them?
Oh.
Do you still use them?
No. You
don't use Martha's rules?
I don't know about it even. I would like to.
When we first moved here, we used, we'd have house meetings, and we used Robert's rules.
Robert's.
We used to call them Robert's rules for macho meetings. And that unless you were really, really knowledgeable in this bizarre, arcane structure, you would always end up in the minority. And and a lot of times the minority's right. It's just they never get their voice heard. So we worked with the Center for Conflict Resolution in developing what we called at the time Martha's Rules for Harmonious Meetings, and it's a modified consensus. Do you still use
we
that?
do use.
You were using the rules.
That some of the houses do.
Yeah.
We use votes.
Yeah, you vote, but you either you can live with it, you're absolutely crazy about it, or you really are against it. And
Oh,
what
yeah.
happens is, if there are people that are in the process the way that we used it and the way we developed it,
Yeah.
that if there are people that are against it, it automatically gets tabled for 2 weeks.
We do have that. You
Okay,
can
but
block it. We call it blocking.
Yeah, and then the people that are really for it can go and try to talk to the people that are really against it. And you can ultimately, if there's people that just need to block everything, there's a way to work around that. And there's always people like that, because that's human nature. But that was a system that we developed here.
Right. How about
And we
that?
talked about it, and we figured it out how to do it. And there was yeah, it works. They're still using it.
Still using it.
29 years later.
Yeah.
And it was written about in a book by the Center for Conflict Resolution.
Really?
So
Wow.
if you were to look it up on Google, you'd probably find it. And it was developed right here in this house.
Wow.
Jesse Kaysen. I was pretty much a listener, but there was a woman named Jesse Kaysen, a man who was a Quaker, had grown up in Africa, and a Quaker, his parents were Quaker missionaries. His name was Ron Lord, and there was a whole bunch of
A lot of strong people, huh?
a lot of really strong, really well educated.
Is that Elia Kazan's daughter, huh?
No, she wasn't. She didn't live here. But at any rate, those were and there was another. It was like
What
eight
they
more.
all became scientists, huh?
Well, a lot of them became scientists. I don't know what happened to Jessie. She's probably, I don't think she had to become anything, because a lot of people had a lot of money.
Oh, really?
Didn't really have to become anything. Back in those kind of like heady days, except for me.
All the hippies were like,
Well, not all of them, but yeah, hippies have money too.
I don't know.
Lots
That's
of
true.
people have money. You know?
A lot of poor Republicans too.
There's a lot of them. It's not a, and having money doesn't make you bad. It doesn't make you good. It just is. Fortunately for the co-op movement in Madison, there are certain people that really backed up their philosophy. This kind of experiment with the seed money to get it started, and then once it got started, here it is. It's still
Yeah, I'm real impressed by it. It just doesn't seem like a real thing in the world, to have this kind of socialist living.
Oh, I'm just so
So, like-
pleased you're still using the Martha's rules, because we worked so hard on them.
Yeah.
It took us about a year
Wow, really?
to figure out how to do it.
That's amazing what you take for granted, isn't it? I just thought they'd always,
So
everything has an origin, but
I'm trying to, all my life, in fact, working by those rules has really, really helped me in my entire life.
Yeah.
Because even though other people don't work that way, if you give them, if you're thinking in the back of your mind, if you're thinking that you're going to make a decision with somebody based on these rules that I know, maybe nobody else knows them, but I'm willing to wait those 2 weeks and try to make my point again.
right.
And
right,
I wish,
right.
I
wish,
think that's really important, too, to let yourself calm down and think about it.
right, especially me, because I'm not exactly a calm person. So.
Can I get a shot of your little boy who's here? Do you mind, Ryan?
No, that's fine.
I'll get you as a progeny and like a house spawn,
Yeah, definitely.
From 0 to 5.
0 to 5, and now look at him now. He must not have been detrimental.
No.
Seem healthy and happy, all that organic food,
Yeah.
right?
I got really tall. You get really big.
Oh, that's sweet.
All the four-year universities and